Afternoon, Karen. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon. Hope you're well.
I'm very good, thanks indeed. Welcome to the Business Spotlight. Karen, could we start? Could you tell me a little about yourself, your background, and your organization?
Yeah, so I started in Netball Northern Ireland around 2014. So I had prior to that I'd been a volunteer for about 10 years. So I always was aware of the governing body in the business and had been on the board, had been on different working groups and what have you, have always been a player. So really interested in what the governing body could do for us. And then say 2014 a job came up and I thought, well, I'm so passionate about it. I'm so involved in it. Why not try and work in it? So I was very fortunate I got the job and I started as a club and workforce development officer. And I hadn't been in the business that long when my boss had the opportunity to move to another sport. So when she left, I acted up in her role for a short time before being given the position as well on a permanent basis. So I was executive manager for about 8 years. And then last year we had a full organization review and the title changed to chief executive, with just a bigger focus on the business side of things and actually how we can make ourselves more commercially viable.
Well, congratulations on your appointment. And is this a career path that you envisaged when you were a young girl?
It's funny you should say that because actually it really is. I remember being playing netball and going to an event and finding out that there was a lady called Kate Harrop who was the netball development officer. So I think I was about 12 and I thought, oh my goodness, you can get paid to do netball. That seems phenomenal. And at
Mhm.
that stage, she probably was the only employed member of staff. She was part-time admin and she did pretty much everything. So she absolutely was the first person that made me realize that, this is an option. And then I suppose when I was volunteering, before I came into the role itself, it was definitely something that I saw, there's opportunity there. But I just didn't know if it would ever happen for me. And I'm very fortunate that it did. And I think we've certainly seen the business grow so much in the last 10 years, because I think it's just now become more acceptable that it is an opportunity to work in sport, whether that be a small sport or one of the more traditional big sports.
And I'd love to understand a little bit more about the target market. So what types of people, businesses, organizations do you love connecting with and benefit the most from connecting with you?
Yeah, so I suppose our biggest reach at the minute is obviously women and girls. Netball is known as a predominantly female sport, and I think it would be remiss of me to say that's not our key target market. We absolutely understand that they need, we are underrepresented in terms of female women and girls playing sport and having the opportunities to play their sport. So they're definitely our key area. However, we're not daft enough to think that that's the wisest route to go down in terms of we want to be a sport for everyone. That really comes from whenever you see mums and dads and brothers and sisters coming to support the players, and actually then they start to get involved themselves. And for us, it's around making it that wider impact, making sure that everyone feels welcome to come and play and come and have a go. So for me, the biggest group that I work with is our membership. We have lots of member clubs and schools, both primary and post-primary. So they're the ones I spend most of my time working with, from an on the ground perspective. Outside of that, then as well, I suppose the biggest thing for us is trying to get eyeballs on our sport, trying to get people to see what we are doing and actually the
Mhm.
benefits of being involved in team sport. Um, we all know about the physical and mental health benefits of being involved in a sport and activity and the feel good factor from going and doing some exercise. And I think for us doing that with your friends, which is what your netball team becomes and your netball club becomes, is really important. Um, so we tend to work with other groups that have similar activities. So we work really closely with other sports. Like for instance, Ulster Hockey, their chief executive and I would chat quite frequently around what's working for them, what are their challenges, how can we work together. And then from within our own sport too, this morning I was on a call with the two chief executives of Scotland and Wales, just having a conversation around a collaborative project that we're doing. And then even the chief executive in Wales is just new in the door. So just having a chat with her around how their business is set up in comparison to ours. Um, and then I suppose the other biggest partner that we work with is our key investor, and that's Sport Northern Ireland. So we do meet with them really frequently, around where do our targets align with theirs, making sure that we're providing value for money for the investment that they give us, and
Mhm.
allowing us to do what we do and do it well.
And how do you keep netball at the top end of their email inbox, so to speak, from a fighting your corner point of view?
Yeah, well, I certainly think that they hear a lot from me, to be fair. Um, but it's really important, I suppose, to recognize that they have targets that they need to hit themselves. They have a business plan that they're looking for, and it's how do we help them do that?
Hmm.
Ultimately, we need to put what we want to do first. We have our own strategy. It's around what works for Netball Northern Ireland. And if we can get the investment from Sport and I to help us do that, then that's brilliant. Ultimately, I always think we should have that investment and support, but I'm not silly enough to realize that, there's sometimes that our paths in every single area of the business won't necessarily match up. So actually it's what are the right bits for us to work together on, and what are the bits that they can support us with. So I think it's around being really clear with our communication around what is our strategy, where do we see ourselves going, and making sure that Sport Northern Ireland understand how that will help them in the grander scheme of things, I suppose.
And what would you say has been your biggest lesson since becoming chief executive, Karen?
Yeah, oh, I think there's probably been a few, to be fair. But ultimately, I think for me, it's around, I think I'm quite good at building relationships with people. I think I'm really good at understanding what makes people tick, and how to get the best out of them. So that's probably my biggest lesson, is understanding that not everyone is the same. Not everyone comes into work with the same mindset, or not everyone has the same, you know, push buttons as everyone else. We're all very individual, and it's actually using those strengths in the best place possible. It probably took me a while to understand that, because you do just assume that everyone's like yourself, but we're not, and it's around giving people the space to make sure that they are allowed to perform at the best they possibly can. So I think that's my biggest lesson, is being respectful of people and how they feel, what they're really good at, how do we support them, and creating a real honest relationship with people, that they can come and chat to me if they're struggling with anything, or if they need a bit of additional support, or really if they want to be left alone and just go and do their thing. So yeah, I think that's probably my biggest lesson.
What have you learned about yourself along the way?
Yeah. I think what I learned about me is that I need a deadline. I definitely need to know that I've got a time frame in mind for things. I think I spend a lot of time talking with others. And
Hmm.
then sometimes that means that your own work gets put to the side, and then you're under pressure. So for me, I like to be really structured. I like to know what my week looks like. I like to know what are my absolute musts. These can't be moved for any reason. These deadlines
Hmm.
have to be hit. And where's my room for flexibility? Because obviously things happen in a day, and you need to be able to adapt. And there'll be members of our staff team that need me at different points that they wouldn't have expected to need me. So it's around making sure that I can be available for them. So that's probably the biggest thing I've learned about me, is that have a timeline and a deadline, and then I'll definitely stick to it.
And have you had any people that have influenced you along the way that has shaped you to who you are today?
Um, Honestly, and I'm not sure how cliched this sounds, but probably my mum. My mum introduced me to netball. It was her that got me playing when I was in primary school, and that was purely because she had played at school. So it was a case of, well, if mum played, I had to play. So she had me out in the back garden throwing and catching from no age.
Ah.
And and if I hadn't had that, I wouldn't have gone into club netball. I wouldn't have realised that there's a national governing body out there that you can work with. Um, and I think even now, hindsight, not just even introducing me to the sport, but actually then ensuring that I committed to the sport. Once you join a team,
Hmm.
once you join a club, you've a responsibility to be there, and you've an accountability to the rest of your teammates. You have training slots, you have your fixtures, you have to get there, you have to be in the right kit, all those types of things. So mum really instilled that in me. And it was her that probably gave me that understanding around, once you've committed to something, you're in it and you see it through. Um, and I suppose the other thing as well that makes me laugh now that I think about it, my mum didn't suffer fools. She would have been very straight, and I think that's probably how I am as well. I'm I'm fine with having a conversation with people and just being very honest with what the expectations are, because there's
Hmm.
no point in leading people down the garden path. You need to be really upfront. So so yeah, I think probably my mum.
Very good. I've done about 150 of these interviews, and you're the first person to mention your mum. A lot of people have referenced their parents, to be fair, so
Yeah.
not cliched at all. Uh, but what gets you out of bed in the morning and drives your passion for what you do?
I think I just eat, sleep, and breathe netball. I love it. I absolutely love it. I still play, I still coach, I still umpire, as well as doing it for work. So it is 24/7. Um, but I don't think I could do this job if I didn't love it. So I think I know what it has given me. It has given me lifelong friendships. It has given me opportunities in terms of even becoming a captain within your team, those leadership skills, understanding how other people work, as I talked about earlier, even just that accountability piece. Whenever you've signed up for something, you see it right through. I know the impact it's had on my life in terms of it, for me, Monday night is netball night. So even this evening, I'm going to training tonight, and I don't know what to do when it's not on a Monday night, if it's off for the summer or Christmas or whatever. I really struggle with what do people do on a Monday night other than go to the leisure centre and go and play netball. So I think that's what gets me out of bed. I want to make sure that other young girls in particular have the same opportunities that I have to build those friendships, to learn those skills that sit outside the classroom, and know that actually there's a real huge part of life out here, and those will be your best friends for the rest of your days.
Very good. What about are there any podcasts that you've ever listened to that you'd like to share, or any books? So I don't know if you're a reader or not, or anything that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I am a reader, but I think because and I know everyone's massively into podcasts and stuff at the minute, and I do float in and float out. I suppose there's a few netball ones that I listen to quite frequently, and it's just nice to know what's going on in the wider netball world. Probably one though that it's still sporty, but there's so much more to it. I love the overlap, the stick to football overlap with Gary Neville and Roy Keane and Jimmy Carragher. And it's a must watch in my house. And so that would be our real regular one, because I think it covers the sports side, it covers, and it brings different guests, and you hear that athlete experience from being a
Mhm.
professional athlete, dealing with injury, dealing with poor performance, dealing with social media, dealing with end of careers, and whether that be chosen end of careers or whether that be careers that have been ended without being chosen, I suppose. And just listening to how they manage that, and then actually seeing the friendships that have built between, like, Gary Neville and Jimmy Carragher. They shouldn't be friends, in the way to look at it from a Man United Liverpool perspective, but actually seeing that close relationship they've built up and the business life that they've gone to have outside of football. And I think the guests they have in are just amazing. So I do love watching that, and listening to that. So I think that's probably my favorite.
No, good share. And what's the biggest challenge that you're currently facing?
Um, at the minute, it's funding, and I'm sure there's probably plenty of business owners that feel exactly the same. For us,
Mm.
we are about 50% publicly funded, and at the minute, obviously, the public purse is under extreme pressure, and I'm not we're not overly confident what that looks like going forward. So at the minute
Mm.
we are in annual funding cycles with our main funder, who is Sport Northern Ireland. So at the minute I'm still unsure what that 25-26 year looks like right now. So we're planning for another full year of activity. But until we get that letter of offer, some of that might need to be curtailed at times. So I think while it can be a real challenge, not having that, you know, definite amount
Mm.
of funding for the next year or 4 years or whatever that looks like. It makes us think differently as well. It gives us the opportunity to go out and seek investment from elsewhere. So it's as I say, they're about 50% of our funding at the minute. So the rest of that tends to come from membership, it comes from other partners. So for us, it's the opportunity to grow those relationships with other partners and bring new partners in. So while it is really challenging, it is what it is. It's not that we're going to be able to change it overnight. We will continue to put the best case forward for Sport Northern Ireland to continue to invest in us and what we do, and for all the outcomes that sit around that, whether it be performances on the court from our national squad, whether it be number of people accessing netball, or will it be number of coaches or umpires coming through the system, or people's physical and mental health, all those things. We'll continue to do all of those things, but actually, if we really want to drive forward and if we really want to grow our business and our sport, then we need to look elsewhere for that support, in terms of investment.
And if let's go in a different direction. If you could invite any three people in the world to a dinner party, who's coming?
Oh my goodness, this is really difficult. Okay, three people for dinner. Like maybe one that has been said before, but Rory McIlroy. I just think I am a huge fan. I am gripped to the TV anytime he's on, particularly when he's in contention, on the last day. So 2 Sundays ago, it was a late night watching him finish off and actually see him start the season with a real solid win when he was challenged, which is great. So I think to watch someone from Northern Ireland have so much success is phenomenal, and how he
Mm.
handles the years where he's seen as not succeeding, and you're thinking he's had all these wins, he's had all these top tens, and we're still saying, well, actually, you're not good enough because you haven't won Augusta. Um, but so it's fingers crossed it's his year this year. But I think even then as well, in terms of the leadership stance that he took, to support the rest of the players and becoming that spokesperson, and then recognizing the impact that was having on his actual game and being able to step away from that in a timely way, I thought was really good. So yeah, and the friendships that he's built as well. Obviously, golf is an individual game, but you can see when he's a part of that Ryder Cup team, or even when he's playing with Shane Lowry or Tiger Woods, you just see those connections that they have, and you just watch it and think, wow, that's incredible. He's from Northern Ireland, he's doing it, and he gives back so much to this country.
Yeah.
I think that's just phenomenal. So he's definitely one. Two would be and it's probably quite a personal one, but this lady called Debbie Hallis, who is hugely well known in netball circles. She's the MD of Netball UK, which is a bespoke netball provider. So they do balls, bibs, trainers, all sorts of things. And she also is the MD of Manchester Thunder, which is a professional netball franchise in England. And I met her when I started working in netball, ultimately because we use them for different bits of equipment, and to the point where they've now become one of our key partners. But outside of that, I happened to go to the 2019 Liverpool World Cup. I was there from a work perspective, where Netball have their meetings there. And Debbie was coming backwards and forwards every day to watch the games. I was like, just jump into my room. There's a spare bed in my hotel room. Come on ahead. And her and I have become really, really solid friends since then. So I think I fully respect everything that she's done in terms of a business leader, how much
Mm.
she is passionate about our sport as well. So having dinner with Debbie is one of my favorite things to do. So she would have to come along, purely because from the sport perspective, the business perspective, and she's a really good friend. Um, and then the last one, so I'm sort of thinking around what is really catching my eye at the minute. And I think when I'm not thinking about netball, the one thing that I've really got into at home is watching like the Yellowstone series that Taylor Sheridan has done on Paramount. So then obviously once you watch Yellowstone, then you get into the prequels and everything around that. So probably Taylor Sheridan, because not only has he created this huge phenomena that everyone seems to love, everyone wants to go to Montana on holiday now. But as well as that, he appeared in them too, when you see what he can do on a horse. And I think I didn't realize it was him that was doing all this stuff on these horses. And then when you find out it's him, then you just look at it in a whole different way. So not only did he create this
Mm.
incredible series, but actually he's an athlete. He's a sports person in terms of what he's doing, and what he's able to get those horses to do is phenomenal. And this is from someone who cannot ride a horse. So it was just just incredible. So I think, yeah, and I think that's quite a nice wee mix there.
Very good. Yeah, and I think you're about the third person this year that's recommended Yellowstone. So yeah, I need to get that on the list. Yeah.
You really do.
And look, I'm sure it wasn't that long ago, Karen, but if it were possible and you could go back and give some advice to your 18-year-old self, what would that sound like?
Sadly, it was a wee while ago, but we'll pretend it's not. Um, 18-year-old self, there's probably two things I would say. And the first one is, and this is more with my sensible head on now, it's know who you are as a person, know what your values are, and stick to them. I think there's so much out there, and we're the generation that's come through it. We're the ones that have seen the social media just take over. And now all of us as slightly older, we're trying to manage and help people as they're in their younger years and come through that, particularly young athletes. Um, so yeah, just know who you are, stick to your values, and it's okay to be you. And I suppose that other thing I would say is that success isn't always what other people think it is. Success to you might look very different to what it does for someone else,
Mhm.
so it might not be the fancy car or the fancy house or whatever. It might actually be just going to your job and being happy in what you do and making a difference to people. So because I think we all have this time frame in our head of, oh, we're 18, we're going to go to uni, we're going to graduate, we're going to start our dream job and we're going to stay there and everything's going to be great. And that's not necessarily what happens. And I think that's okay. And it probably took me a wee bit of time to recognize that when I changed career in my early 30s.
And what about looking forward then? So let's fast forward 5 years, so 2030. What does Netball NI look like then?
Um, I know what I would like it to look like. And as much as 5 years sounds like a long time, certainly the 10 years that I've been here has flown in. We've had massive change in that 10 years. So I don't expect we will have as huge, as big a change. But what I would see is that we will have secured that long-term investment, whether that be from a public funder or whether that be from corporate partners, that we will have that so we can have real clear calendar planning. And I definitely think from the conversations that I'm having now that the facility and the infrastructures around facilities will be improved to be able to support our sport to deliver more effectively. And definitely our profile just keeps going up and up and up. So I would hope that within 5 years' time, that if you ask a young girl at school who one of her role models are, that she'll say a netballer. There are a few that already do it now, but they're within that netball family. So I think I'd like
Mhm.
us to get to the point where you don't have to be a netballer or within the netball environment to have heard of our Warriors or and know that we're 11th in the world and all the things that I know. I would like us to be at the point in 5 years' time where it's common knowledge across Northern Ireland.
Very good. And if someone would like to reach out to you or the organization, get in touch, what would be the best way for them to go about that?
Oh, yeah. So they can contact us. Our social media pages are probably the best pages to get in contact with Netball and I in general. And me myself as well. I'm on like I look at our social media pages and stuff too, or on LinkedIn, or they can just drop us an email. All our emails are on our website, which is www.netballni.org. So all our contact lists are on there.
Superb. Karen Rollo from Netball NI, thanks very much for taking the time to chat with me today. It's broadened my knowledge and it's, yeah, look, it's like anything to do with sport and mental health and kids is absolutely fantastic. So I wish you every success for this year and the future. So Karen, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks so much for having me on.